Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, the show where you get the inside access to the best minds in the game. Each week, Chris has the privilege of chatting with top instructors, legendary players, course architects, and industry insiders. If you're looking to improve your game, gain a new perspective, or just hear some incredible golf stories, you are indeed in the right place.
You see, Chris, let me tell you something, I haven't spoken to a press man in my life that is knowledgeable, seriously, as you are. Never.
You do such a great job. It kind of makes me feel good all of a sudden.
You do so much for the game. You're so kind to all of us that are out there in the game. You know, we need more people like you in the game of golf.
Thank you for pressing play. Now, grab your clubs, step up to the tee, and let's get started. This is Next on the Tee.
Hey, folks, welcome into this special Draft Week edition of Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and the game gets better. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro. And as always, thank you so much for pressing play and choosing to be a part of this show today. Whether you're on your way to the golf course, you're headed into the office, or just thinking about your next round, I'm so glad you're here. Today, I've got a really unique and fun lineup for you. Two of the very best and very different sides of the world people that are both connected to leadership, passion, and have a love for competition. First up, making his Next on the Tee debut with me is Cody Trabert. Cody is the head men's golf coach over at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. Cody is doing fantastic things building up that program, getting better each and every year under his leadership. Now, he played for the team not all that long ago, but look, he is out there now developing young players, shaping not just their games, but who they are as competitors and as people. Equally important, that last part. We'll talk about his journey in the game, what he's seen from his team this season, and they've had a ton of success, both collectively. Plus, some of his players have gone on to take home medalist honors, so you'll hear all about all of that. Plus, we'll get into some insights that all of us can use to improve our game. Some insights from Cody, some mindset things that are just going to really make your game, your mental part of the game. We talk about that a lot here, but he's going to contribute to that, help make you a winner as well. Then we'll switch gears and welcome in a guy who is one of our guest Hall of Famers over on our old football show Thursday Night Tailgate, and that is James Allen. James was a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame board for many years. He brings a completely different perspective from the world of football and the history and the legacy and truly what it means to be great. Why? Because he was around the greatest players of all time. We'll get into some of what he calls the gold jackets and the people that he has met and known and have influenced him, the conversations he's been able to have with those Hall of Famers, including Dan Rooney. James has a great story that illustrates just exactly the type of person Mr. Rooney was. I love the story. You're going to love it as well. We'll also talk a little golf and some stories about some of the legends of the game that James knows that I am very fond of, particularly Gary Player. James is just an amazing person, one of the nicest and most supportive people that you'll ever meet. Down to earth, he would do anything for you. Meet him. I got to meet him when the Super Bowl was here in Atlanta. And he couldn't have been nicer to me and my son, Jonathan. Took us around, introduced us to a lot of the gold jackets and a lot of other people as well, some influencers around the game of football. So it was a hugely meaningful experience for both me and, like I say, for my son. And James is just that kind of person, just a tremendous human being. I know you're going to enjoy getting to know him and Cody because, look, again, both of these guys, great at what they do, but also just simply great human beings. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. Now, one last thing before we get started, like I've been saying over the last several episodes, that would make a huge difference to this show, be a huge favor to me, wherever you're listening to the show now. If you would, take just a couple of seconds and subscribe to it. Again, you guys know what the algorithms do and what they mean. It's going to get the show in front of more great people, more great golf enthusiasts just like you. I would really, really appreciate it. All right, and I am really excited to tell you who I get to share with you next, because this is a guy who didn't just play for his program. He's now building it into something very special, and that is Cody Trabert. Cody is the head men's golf coach at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. This is a guy who wore the uniform, competed for Pitt Johnstown as a player, then stayed on and learned the ropes as an assistant. And now he's leading the program to heights that it has never seen before. Under his leadership, the team has been on a serious upward trajectory. He's led them to multiple NCAA regional appearances, a program best scoring average, and a runner-up finish at the PSAC championship that tied the best in school history. They've earned 3 berths into the Atlantic East Region tournament. They did so in 2022, 24, and 25. They recently got a big win at the Appalachian Collegiate Tournament. 2 of his players have won medalist honors this spring. When you talk about developing players and turning belief into results, that's exactly what Cody Trabert is doing right now. And we're going to get into that here in this segment. Plus, how he's turning Pitt Johnstown into a program that people better start paying attention to. And I couldn't be more honored I get to spend time with him this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Cody, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Chris, and thank you for the kind words.
Cody, I always like to start with a first-time guest by going all the way back to the beginning. How old were you when you first picked up a golf club, and what got you hooked?
Yeah, I had a much different bringing onto the game than most people. I played a lot of different sports growing up, played football, basketball, baseball, dabbled in track and field a little bit. And, when I was the summer after my junior year of high school, my father-in-law kind of got me out on the golf course a little bit to start picking up the game. I think the thing that I liked about it the most is that it was so challenging compared to the other sports. Not that the other sports weren't challenging in their own, but golf is just seems so easy. The golf ball's sitting there, it's not moving. You should be able to hit it. And ever since then was kind of hooked into the game. So shortly after I started working down at Chestnut Ridge Golf Resort in Blairsville and on the cart staff down there, and was able to spend a lot of time out in the golf course and really just fell in love with it then.
Was there a moment or a point in time when it really struck you that, you know what, hey, this may be more than just a hobby for me?
Yeah, I had high aspirations to play collegiate baseball at the time, and didn't exactly pan out. And I definitely enjoyed the competitive aspect of sports and athletics, and golf is one of those sports that I kind of foresaw being able to play for the remainder of my life, and a sport that you can still kind of have that competition side of things. And so my freshman year of college, I practiced a lot, started to really get into the game a little bit more, and I was a good player relative to the general population across the world, but was not a great player by any means in college. I could certainly break 80, but was not a great player at the time, and decided after my freshman year to try to reach out to Pitt Johnstown while I was there, enrolled at the school, and see if I could walk onto the program, and was fortunate enough that Mike Drehos, the coach at the time, was willing to have me.
Let's take that a step further, right? You obviously played collegiately there at Pitt Johnstown. When you look back at your time there and being a part of the team, what are some of your favorite memories? What are some of the things that stick out to you about the time that you played there?
Yeah, I think, I kind of preach this to our guys, and it sounds cliche, but, just spending time on the road, with your teammates and competing, and the van rides and the trips, and, the late night practice rounds and the long days on the golf course, and being able to, sit down and have meals after the rounds and things like that. Those are certainly the things that stick with you a little bit more so than probably even the results on the course. Building the relationships as a team, just because, college golf is one of those rare instances where, in golf you get to play for each other and play for something a little bit bigger than yourself. And it's a very finite time, in your life that you get to do that. High school sports, you certainly get to do that with high school golf, but collegiate golf, it definitely has a little bit of a different feel. And, by the time you know it, you blink and the 4 years are up, and, you get to play maybe some Ryder Club cups and things like that at your home clubs and some things. But certainly, it's a rare instance where you get to play for something bigger than yourself.
How did your experience being a student athlete there ultimately shape the way that you coach the team now?
Yeah, I mean, Pitt Johnstown always had, has a great education background there, and was very fortunate to spend some time there as a player under Coach Strayhoff, which was, instrumental in getting us over to Sunnyhanna Country Club. And, I just always had a deep belief that, with our strong education background there, and we were fortunate, with Coach Strayhoff getting us over to Sunnyhanna, I really felt like we could really get some momentum and get some things clicking there. And Division II golf is, it's very important to have that balance as a student athlete. Ultimately our students are there to play college golf, but they're also there to get a good education. And, felt like that Johnstown was kind of the best of both worlds there, where, you can get that great, University of Pittsburgh education and combine that, with a growing golf program at the same time. So, that was certainly our foundation. And then obviously we try to bring talented kids in that are great on the golf course and also great in the classroom. And when you have both of those things, it certainly works hand in hand.
Cody, you've mentioned your father-in-law, you've mentioned Coach Strayhoff. Was there a coach or a mentor along the way that ended up being a really huge influence on you, whether it was as a player or as a person?
I've had a lot of great coaches throughout the years, you know, throughout playing travel baseball and high school sports. And, I tried to just, take as much as I could from each and every person. Everyone has obviously their strengths, funny enough, coming up through the ranks too. My current, one of my volunteer assistant coaches, Chris Matava, was also one of my coaches kind of growing up. So, Coach Strauss also was one, it's always important to build good relationships with your players, and sometimes you're going to have the hard conversations with them, but knowing that you're there to develop them as people, more so probably than as a golfer or as a student. Our goal at the end of the day, at the end of the 4 years for our student athletes, are to get a good education, have a great time playing golf, be competitive, and that's absolutely fantastic. But we want them to be able to, go out in the real world after the fact, be successful in their jobs, be successful with their families, be successful as, as husbands, as, fathers, all of those types of things. That's something that we definitely want to try to take pride in for sure.
Was there a big adjustment that you had to make going from being a player, being a teammate, to coaching within the same program?
Yeah, it was definitely different. After I graduated from the program, I had stepped away from the program for about a year and a half, and was working elsewhere, kind of out of town. And then I really, kind of wanted to get back into it. Like I kind of missed that side of things, being back out on the golf course and doing that side. So I reached out to Coach Strayhoff and said, "Hey, would you have me on as a volunteer when I could make it?" And he said, yes, fortunately. And ever since then, kind of have been in love with the coaching side of things, and it's been very fun to kind of build the program up, from a year to year basis. And obviously with that, there's differing challenges over the years that you see as the program continues to grow. But we're starting to really see the fruits of the labor of even the guys that came onto the program early, 5-6 years ago. They kind of even joked after they graduated that they kind of walked a little bit so that the current team could run. And I see a lot of truth in that.
Cody, like I mentioned in your intro, the program has really taken a giant step forward over the last few years. What's been the key to that growth?
Yeah. I think, step one, we have, great practice facilities for the teams. We've always had a standing membership up at Wimber Country Club, which is a fantastic private facility there. Greens are always in great shape up there. It's a little bit more of your standard type country club, tree line type holes. Greens are a little bit smaller, a little bit more slopey. And then, whenever after I had graduated, Coach Strayhoff was, fortunate to work with Sunnyhanna Country Club and get us over there. And that has been, very instrumental in being able to draw some additional recruits in. Sunnyhanna Country Club is obviously one of the more premier courses in the state of Pennsylvania. They host the Sunnyhanna Amateur each year, which is, part of the Elite Amateur Series. So it's one of the top amateur events in the world. And it has that prestige. And, whenever we, are speaking with recruits, and we mentioned Sonny Hanna, you can definitely tell that their ears are perking up a little bit, and that certainly excites them. So, I think that was a big transition and a big piece to, the key to our success in terms of drawing additional recruits. And then, we have the great education there. We have a very good engineering program, very good business program, and those have been the two kind of niche majors for the most part that we've kind of seen, our golfers coming in, majoring in. So, being able to combine, great practice facilities, out on the courses, with, the great education, and then also just kind of the vision of the program, like, hey, we're going to get better, each and every year. We can't do everything within a year, but we're going to keep getting better on a daily basis, and standardly committing to a process. And it certainly, paved the way a little bit here over the last few years.
This past season has been an historic one in a lot of ways, but I wanted to get your thoughts. Talk about the great things that you guys have been able to achieve so far this season.
Yeah, it's been very exciting. We've seen progress, in the program each and every year over the last, 5, 6 seasons, where our scoring average has dropped. We found ourselves in contention a lot more. And kind of our goal going into this season as a team was, every time we tee it up in an event, we wanted to try to find ourselves in the mix in the final group. Obviously it's incredibly tough to win in golf, as a team and individually. So you're not going to win every event by any means, but we wanted to really find ourselves in contention. So, we came out. We have a much different team this year. We have 6 new guys and 6 returners. We have a mix of 3 freshmen and 3 transfers that came in. So we had a much different team than what we had last year, with a very senior, strong group that had graduated. So, there was a lot of different expectations kind of coming into this year, a little bit of unknowns. And, we started off the fall event a little bit slow, and finishing 6th out of 12 at the Glenmore event hosted by Malone University. And that little bit of adversity, I think, was a good wake up call a little bit, and, kind of allowed everyone to kind of see that, like, hey, success isn't just going to come because we're talented. We have to, really commit to the process, and be focused on every single shot. And the guys responded incredibly well, and came out, in the fall, and we won our second event out at Hannestown Golf Club, co-hosted by Cal U and Wheeling. So that was super exciting. We got a team win there, and Griffin Hansberry, as a freshman, also was able to win that event as the medalist. So that was super exciting. And then, we really kind of kept building on it. We found ourselves in the final group of the Sonny Hanna Collegiate, which we hosted, and ended up taking second there. We found ourselves in the final group out at Mohawk Golf Club, hosted by Tiffin University in Ohio. We're in the last group there and took third. Then we kind of ended the fall off with our conference championships out at Iron Valley Golf Club in Lebanon, PA. And, we had a couple shot lead going into the final round, and the final round maybe wasn't our best round of the season, but, we were still in the mix there and ended up taking second. And it was interesting, the dynamic, and the fact that, in during the 2024-2025 season, we took second at conference championships as well. But Gannon had a very, very strong year that year, and won the conference championship by about 30 shots. And, we made a good surge late in the round that fall, and took second place, and we're very excited. Versus this year, we still took second place and maybe didn't feel quite as good about it, just because we didn't, kind of close it out. But it was certainly, showing great strides in the program, where, previously we were incredibly excited, first time ever taking second at the conference championships, to now, we were taking second, and, we weren't overly thrilled with it, obviously. So, we've continued to grow, and, we found ourselves in the final grouping quite often in the fall. And, we've been building onto that into the spring season.
So you guys got a win at the Appalachian Collegiate Tournament. David Ruzinkus was the medalist for you guys there. He made 6 birdies in the final round, including a 25-footer on the last hole. Talk about David and that huge win.
Yeah, that was very exciting. We spent a week down in Myrtle Beach for a spring trip, and played an event down there, and started off a little bit slow, but was able to get some good work in after that, and head into Blacksburg Country Club at the Appalachian Collegiate. And The guys played solid. It was very, very tough, windy conditions. The greens were very fast and firm, and David was a trooper that last round. It was not easy conditions. He was paired with the gentleman from Virginia Tech that was tied with him for the majority of the round, and they were kind of battling it out back and forth. Like you had mentioned, David had 6 birdies, a few bogeys mixed in there as well, and they were battling down the stretch, and coming down at the end, both of them kind of hit tee balls pretty far off to the right on the last hole, and David hit an incredible bunker shot where people were kind of thinking like, hey, it's going to be a good shot just to get this on the green, and he flew it right at the pin. It landed by the pin and rolled out to probably about 25 feet. And the gentleman from Virginia Tech was off to the right too, and it was kind of a similar situation where hey, it's a great shot for this would be to 20 feet, and he was able to land it perfectly and hit it to about probably 15, 18 feet as well. David was the first up to putt, and definitely one of those clutch moments where he had the ball in his hand. He was able to, if he makes that putt, he puts pressure onto Baltazar from Virginia Tech, and he was able to commit to the putt, hit a perfect read, perfect speed, drained it in, and luckily he was able to come out victorious for that. So that was great to see him get an individual win there, and then we were able to pull out the team victory there too, which was very exciting.
And you guys back that up at the Spade of Four Invitational. Eli Ropietsky, he takes a medalist honors for you guys in that tournament. Talk about his play.
Yeah. Eli's definitely having a breakout year. He's the type of kid that's in the gym every morning at 6 o'clock, putting in the hours in the weight room, hitting balls for a couple hours a day. He's a true workhorse, and I think the fruits of his labor over the last few years are really starting to pay off and pay dividends. He's got a lot of confidence in his game. He's hitting the ball further, more confidence in his short game, and he certainly believes in himself. And, big thing kind of heading into the final round with him having the lead, there's obviously a little bit of an added pressure with having the lead. And the big key was just staying patient throughout the round. I think after the front 9, he was heading into the back 9, I believe 2 or 3 shots back off the lead at that point. There was a gentleman from Westchester that was playing great golf on the front 9, and the big thing was just staying patient. So he ended up playing the back 9 at 1 under par, I believe, with 8 pars and 1 birdie at the last. And that was the big key in talking with him. Just, hey, I'm going to stay patient. I'm going to commit to it. If putts fall, great. If not, I'm not going to try to force anything. I'm going to kind of try to take what the course gives to me, and we'll see what happens. And the 18th hole at Indiana Country Club's a par 5. He hit a second shot kind of up towards the green, and hit a chip to about 4 inches, which was a nice, comfy tap in birdie there, and it really put the pressure onto, the fellow student athlete from Westchester there, who hit his approach shot to about 6 feet and was unable to connect there. So it was very good to see Eli get that victory, to back off his victory as the PSAC medalist as well in the fall.
And we'll be right back. You guys know what a fan I am of On Point Golf. Folks, get the #1 ball marker in the game of golf. On Point is the only 3-dimensional ball marker with alignment technology and a removable coin. It is approved for use according to the rules of golf as defined by the USGA and the R&A. As we all know, putting is all about line and pace. Mark your ball with On Point, engage with your 3-dimensional ball marker, and have more confidence in your line, execute the putt, and lower your scores. Folks, with the likes of Jim Furyk, PGA professionals, and amateurs alike out there using them now, it's the #1 ball marker in golf that actually helps you lower your scores. Go online to onpointgolf.us, read about the science behind it, then put one in your bag and make more putts. I feel like it's the 15th club in my bag. It's helped my game. Why wouldn't you let On Point help yours as well? Again, onpointgolf.us. Check them out and get one in your bag today.
PGA Tour Superstore pros aren't born. They're made. Every January, hundreds of associates talk to the top manufacturers, learn about the latest clubs, test the newest equipment, logged thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls, all so they can get you the perfect fit.
Now let's get back to the show. Now with the team finishing near the top of the leaderboards, like you were mentioning a minute ago, has that shifted the way that they go into a tournament? Is the team carrying itself with more confidence, expecting to be there each and every week?
Yes, yeah, it's definitely shifted a lot, especially over the last few years. You know, I truly believe that, when our guys tee it up, we're going to have an opportunity to go out there and win every single week. Obviously, it doesn't always go your way, but, going into the events, everyone certainly feels that way, and can put up good grounds. And really excited to kind of see how the rest of this spring goes. We're hosting the Pitt Johnstown Bedford Springs Collegiate this upcoming Monday and Tuesday up at Omni Bedford Springs. We're very fortunate to be able to host there, and then the NCAA selections will be coming out here at the end of April, and we'll be set to host the NCAA Atlantic East Super Regional up at Sunnyhanna at our home course, which is just a fantastic privilege to have that as our home course, but very fortunate that they're willing to work with us and host such a big NCAA event there, and we're very excited to be able to play at our home course.
So for you as a head coach, how do you balance continuing to develop your elite players, but also helping the guys who are still trying to find their game?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a balance. A lot of these guys, I'm not a PGA Class A professional, like some of the coaches that are out there. And I try to spend a lot of my time focusing on our guys on the mental side and short game and game management out on the course. We still allow all of our players and, encourage them to continue to work with their swing coaches that they work with, throughout the summertime, because college golf is one of those things where it's like, hey, these guys are playing, competitive summer events all summer long, whether it be USGA events, AJGA, West Penn Golf Association, Tri-State, PA Golf, you name it. They're playing all these events. They're working with their swing coaches. So whenever they come in the fall, they're definitely kind of primed and already ready in that competition mode. And so we really try to, focus on the little things, making sure they're still doing the little things, hitting their spots in their swings, hitting their positions, not getting out of position, making sure their setup's still good, and kind of combining that with the mental side of things. Nowadays, all these kids, carry it, 300 yards and bomb it out there. And, we kind of got to try to get them dialed back a little bit here and there to make sure that they're, keeping it in play, being in smart positions, making sure you're hitting fairways versus being in the rough at some of these courses, and really working, approaches into the greens, and, maybe not always firing at the pins, but more so just giving your putter a chance from 20 feet and, picking and choosing where you can be a little bit more aggressive. So, we certainly have some downtime in the wintertime here with the off season, with the weather in Pennsylvania. So, during the off season, we spend some time on our indoor facility here, and pick some things for each player, and try to focus on that and do some swing changes over the winter time when you're not forced to put it out into competitive play. And I think that's a big plus for us, so that we can kind of come out in the spring ready to roll.
Cody, I love the enthusiasm in your voice. I'm sure that motivates your players. I'm sure that gets them pumped up and excited when they're heading into a tournament. As you look out to the rest of this spring season, what excites you most about what's left of the regular season, and then obviously getting into the D2 tournament?
Yeah, no, I'm super excited, to be back at Bedford Springs. We hosted there 2 years ago, and we're able to pull out a team victory there in our inaugural year hosting at Bedford Springs. And Mauricio Hernandez was medalist there. And due to scheduling stuff, we weren't able to host last year. So we had a year off, and we're very fortunate to be back up there at such a great facility hosting, and really looking forward to defending our title from a couple years ago. And really it's serving as a little bit of a regional preview. We have a very strong field with a lot of the top teams from the Atlantic region here. So super excited for that. Super excited. It's local to us too. So it allows an opportunity for everyone on our team to get out there and compete. which is always great because it allows everyone, an opportunity to get some more tournament experience under them and compete in a great field. And then, moving forward, can't say enough how excited we are to be up at Sunnyhanna for the Super Regionals. It's a tournament level course day in and day out. The fairways are always firm and fast, greens are firm and fast and undulating, and it's a good test of golf. And just super excited to be able to play there. And our goal is once again, tee it up and put ourselves in contention. The top 3 teams out of 20 teams will be advancing to the NCAA National Championships, which is something that's never been done at Pitt Johnstown before, in terms of having an individual or a team at the championship. So that's certainly one of our goals too. But we just want to try to commit to the process as much as possible and find ourselves in contention down in that final round.
Cody, before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they support the program, plus also stay up to date with all the great things you guys are out there doing, whether they're following you online or they're doing it on social media?
Yeah, no, we certainly couldn't be where we at without our donors, supporters, alumni. We've really been trying to grow our alumni base back and our donors and supporters as much as possible. We try to provide as many updates as we can on social media, as that's kind of the most popular way to attract people these days. So we try to stay up to date on our Instagram. Chris Caputo or SID at Pitt Johnstown does a great job of getting everything up on our website at Pitt Johnstown as well. We've put together our historical database of statistics over the last few years since the program's history started in 2006. So that would be a great way to just get started in terms of checking out the website, checking out our social media pages. And, with us having a few local events here in the Western PA region, we'd certainly love to have some Pitt Johnstown supporters out there in person here, May 7th through 9th up at Sunnyhanna as well.
Well, Cody, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to come join me and be a part of the show. Best of luck to you guys finishing this season strong, hopefully getting into the NCAA tournament. I hope you'll come back and update us and keep us updated on the great things you guys are out there doing, because what you have done with the program has been outstanding. Kudos to you and to the players.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. It's certainly the credits to the players. They're the ones out there putting the ball in the hole. I'm just fortunate enough to have a good crew of guys that we put out there on a weekly basis, and keep building on it. And I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on as well to kind of speak about Pitt Johnstown.
Absolutely. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Yep. Thank you. You too.
See you, Cody.
Bye.
That is Cody Trabert, folks. You can follow them on Instagram at UPJ_golf. And look, I hope what you take away from this segment of the show is where that program was. And they were a good program. Don't get me wrong. They were a good program, but they are certainly one with an upward trajectory that is continuing to set records. You heard them talk about stroke average. They set a stroke average record. Now they're weekly getting into the tops of the leaderboards. They're weekly finishing near or in the last group. They've got guys that are out there taking medalist honors, and they are really putting pressure on the top schools in the division and in the programs around them. So when you look at how they have progressed, it is just unbelievable. I think Cody is doing a great job. And like I talked about, right, you could hear the enthusiasm and positivity in his voice. When you've got a coach that's doing those kinds of things, that just starts to permeate throughout the program, right? Kids get excited. They start to see guys on the program starting to win and starting to place near the tops of a leaderboard. That incentivizes the other guys. You've got a coach that's there being positive and generating that excitement. You got the players that are buying in and getting on board with that. These guys are all now coming together, and you heard him towards the end there, right? He's got these guys that are playing really, really well, kind of at an elite level. He's then spending some time and helping the other guys kind of build their games towards that. So what does that do? That gels the team, and that is why they are on an upward trajectory. I hope they do really, really well in the upcoming tournaments. I can't wait to see. I feel pretty confident that they're going to end up in the NCAA tournament, so I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we can catch up with Cody after that, hear how it went, and all the success stories that they have along the way that got him there. But I'm excited about this program, and I look forward to having Cody back on the show again before too long. Coming up next is a former member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Board of Directors and just one of the great people that you get to meet in this life, and that is James Allen. Before I bring James into the show, let me remind you about the great things going on up at Macklemore, because this year, get ready to experience a game like never before at the Keep, the brand new Bill Bergen and Reese Jones co-designed course at Macklemore. With its challenging layout and awe-inspiring views, every round here is an unforgettable adventure. Whether you're taking on the signature holes or just soaking in the scenery, the Keep is where your best golf meets nature's finest backdrop. So grab your clubs and join us up at Macklemore. The Keep is open and it's waiting for you. And folks, if you haven't tried 2-under yet, you really need to. Why? Well, from the first tee to the clubhouse, 2-under's Joey Pouch is going to keep you comfortable and locked in all round or all day. Build your own bundle by going online to 2-under, that's the number 2, UNDR.com, and save up to 20%. Okay, now joining me is a member of our Guest Hall of Fame over on our Old Football Show Thursday Night Tailgate, James Allen. James was on the board of directors at the Pro Football Hall of Fame Foundation. He became a wonderful friend and a pretty regular guest with us over there. Also had the privilege of spending some time with him a few years ago during Super Bowl week here in Atlanta at the Lee Steinberg Super Bowl party. It was so fantastic. James couldn't have been any nicer to me and my son. Couldn't have been greater to be around. Introduced us to a lot of the Hall of Fame players. It was just a wonderful experience, and it was so because James made it that way. I highly encourage you to go out and follow him on Instagram at TXDeveloper007. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And I couldn't be more honored that I get to spend some time with him this week over on this show, Next on the Tee. Hey, James, thank you so much for joining me again.
Wow, what an introduction. Chris, great to be back with you again. That was a great time we met at Atlanta at Lee Steinberg Super Agents Party with you and your son. I don't know more about the Gold Coast and the coaches than anybody else. There were some guys on that board at the Hall of Fame that probably know more than me, but I was very blessed and have a lot of gratitude for that experience. So thank you.
So, James, I want to start off talking about great teams. When we think about them, whether it's in football or in golf, and by in golf, I'm talking about teams in terms of player-caddie relationship. But great teams always come down to chemistry and trust. You've certainly talked with the all-time greats over on the football side. Talk about how important chemistry and trust are for teams to be successful, whether it's in the NFL, it's in golf, or just any other sport that you might be playing.
Yeah, I think the tangent on your podcast, stay with golf, and I know on the NFL side, people don't realize there's a key person that most people don't even know the name of, and that's the general manager who sets the tone and the culture with the owner and the players and created a culture and a locker room presence. We've seen people try to do superstars or locker room problems. They don't work out. So really, football is about relationships with the owner, trusting the general manager who then assigns the coach. And there's a great saying in the NFL that I've heard different people say that if a coach gets a win, he gets too much credit. And if he loses, he has too much blame. And at tangent goes back to the golf and caddies. I mean, there's so many stories. Jack Nicklaus, Gary Wood, your buddy that was just on. I'm sorry, your South
Gary
African
Player.
Gary Player. Sorry. It's just the tangents. I mean, we see that with your Steelers, right? And how the Rooneys have run their team. And I love, I'm a Texas guy, born and raised, and down here in Texas, the running joke is it's the cowboy life. George Strait and football, and so we're big on we're huge football. We have high school stadiums that cost 60, 70 million, as you probably heard. It's a big thing down here, but I'm a massive Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Just FYI, if you were at my ranch office, you would see more signed helmets from those players than anybody else. And I grew up as a Cowboys fan, just so you know. And I'm a massive fan of what the Rooneys and the Steelers have done and the chemistry they've done. And I'm a massive, the stories, with Nicholas and Angelo, along with Willie Peterson, with Gary Player, and some of those stories. And we can talk about and get into some of the details. But those little nuances, they always say that water boils at 212 degrees, and that coach is that 1 degree with that player. And they are. I do want to go on a tangent here. He's not a Steelers, but he's probably one of my favorite Hall of Fame people of all time, and that was Coach Marv Levy. And he went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. I mean, I understand he didn't win, but that is a task that is so hard. And he didn't want to become a coach. He was going to be a lawyer, very highly educated. And I remember watching and talking to the players, and even, like Thurman Thomas said, I always had a problem fumbling. And Coach Levy, in a crucial situation, didn't say, don't fumble. He would just say, hold on to the ball. He was always positive. It's just those little things. And golf, as you know, and I both know, is a very mental game. And I love the relationship between the players and the caddies as a kind of an obtuse statement. But I would love to talk further about any of those things, because I'm fascinated with the psychology and the teamwork that goes behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's so much there, James, that I want to unpack. I mean, my mind is going in a million different directions. Let's try to stay player-caddie for a moment, right? You were telling me about reading about Tom Watson and his caddy Alfie Files back in the day during the Duel in the Sun at the Open Championship, where Watson trusted him with club selection on that final hole, and how big it was for a caddy at that point to step in, right? It's the 72nd hole. It's he and Nicholas coming down to the wire. They're talking about club selection, and Watson actually defers to the caddy. Talk about what you learned from that story.
Well, yeah, it is interesting, and Watson picked his 6-iron, and you kind of leave, it's kind of like a kicker before their kick. You kind of like, this is the shot for the turn. This is it. This is the famous duel at Turnberry, and Files just kind of stepped in and said, "Hey, yeah, the 7-iron." And Watson just looked at him and goes, "You are so jacked up right now. Trust me, 7-iron." And that's all he said. But, just that 1 degree, because later Watson says if he hit the 6-iron way over, because he was jacked up, because and there's a great example of Alfie stepping in, and he hit that shot, was 30 inches of the hole, which cinched the deal. And that's that 1 degree where a caddy knows when, to let the player play, but it's kind of like, hey, I see you're all jacked up, you're pumping, and let's step the iron up a little bit, 1 route. And Watson, to his defense, trusted that.
Right. Yep.
So I love those stories.
Yeah, there's an equally good, and I was telling you before the show that I've been blessed to have Gary Player on the show every year since 2013. We kind of have a pre-Masters conversation, and there's a wonderful story between he and his caddy. He always got the same one when he went there to Augusta National in 1974 when Mr. Player won that tournament. But prior to it, his caddy had a need. Talk about that story.
There's 2 stories with Gary that I like. I mean, obviously, class act, worked out all the time, known for his tenacity, and I love it when McCoy stepped up to him, his caddy, and in 1978, he said, "Mr. Player, we got to win because I'm in trouble and I need a new house." And he wasn't kidding around. And as Gary, his infamous, he said, "I don't know what kind of trouble Eddie was in. I didn't ask any questions, but when I came from 7 shots behind to win on Sunday, you'd never seen us happier man than Eddie." And Gary later said, and I'm sure you know this, you talked to him quite a bit. He was like, that was at his mind, and his friend, was not trying to motivate or anything. He goes, we need to win, brother. We need to help. And he's 7 shots back, and man, what a comeback. I also like, that in 1978, he was, as you know, and he was at the Masters, and he was in the final round, tied for 10th place, 7 shots behind, and 42 years old. He shot that 64, birdied 7 of the last 10 holes. And that whole thing, that whole story with, McCoy and Player and that amazing win at 42 years of age, it's just all the probabilities, all in place. And if you also know, he also said a second story. Not only did his caddy say, "Man, we need to win," and he was so far out of the lead, and of course he may come back at 42 years of age, but I don't know if if he's mentioned this before, but his wife said, why don't you try putting a different way? Because he said Gary was always he called himself a jabber. Of course, I can't do the South African accent. And he said that, he knew that everyone said a firm wrist stroke is better than all these young players that have been putting so well with it. I finally decided, my wife said, just suggested and try it. So I thought, even a wife is in the mix on that great comeback. So I love those stories because, again, to win a championship, it's a game of inches. The NFL, it's a game of inches in golf. We know this. It's a game of inches in baseball, and those inches are controlled by coaching, repetition, trust, and having those 1 degree moments at key times. So,
when
I
you
love
think
that.
about it, James, the player-caddie relationships and the ones that have lasted for more than a few years. I mean, I think we immediately go back to thinking about Tiger Woods and Stevie Williams or Phil
Sure.
and Bones. What do you think are keys in making a relationship like that last for more than a couple of years?
Well, you have to know your player, right? Same with the NFL. A coach can't, I could go through all the different coaches. You can't talk to this player. You can't talk to Jack Ham the way you would talk to Terry Bradshaw. Although, I'm saying it would be a Steelers reference.
Yeah.
And Franco Harris and I could spend a lot of time together, and thanks to his sister Linnell. And as humble as he was, but everybody has the way they have to be coached, and a great coach knows how to individualize that. Well, that's more amplified in golf. And you see these stories, and even with Jack Nicklaus, when he ended up getting Willie out of the blue, right?
Yep.
And nobody wanted, I think what's his name, Pond was his caddy in 1959, and said, man, he's just too intense. And Willie says, I'll take him. And then he won 5 Masters with Willie. And they later you talk about, and even when Jack Nicklaus talked about Angelo, he always said, Angelo said, I only know to do 2 things with Jack when he's not playing well. 1, remind him he's the best golfer in the world, and 2, that there's plenty of holes left. So, Jack, you can talk to different, from Bernard Langer to Gary Player and all these guys, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson. If you notice, their stories aren't the same because we all know those guys have totally different personalities. They will have one thing in common. They're hyper competitive and they're willing to train hard, but you can't have the same caddy talk to each player the same way, if that makes sense. And
It does.
You see even caddies that have switched to another ones that even do things different with that player because they customize some, to that player on what they need psychologically or coaching. Or, as I love what Angelo said, with 44 tournaments, Jack Nicklaus said, all I had to do was say, you're the best golfer in the world and we have plenty of holes left, and walk away, right? Jack didn't want to hear about club selection or this or that or the wind and everything else. So those are, I could go on, but I love the customization of coaching at the NFL at different levels, the successful ones, when you see the stories, to hang out with the players away from the media and away from things, and you hear the real stories about, hey man, this, and hey man, that, or I recently was doing something, and I was at an event years ago with Lawrence Taylor was there, with Jim Brown, and as you know, with I was actually hanging out with Harry Carson at Super Bowl in Indianapolis, and Harry's a very intense guy, middle linebacker, and Hall of Famer. I remember him saying, the story's true with Lawrence. I mean, the defensive plays, we just said, Lawrence, line on the weak side, go get the guy with the ball. It's like Waterboy from Adam Sandler. And, that you can't do that with every player. And that was Harry Carson, and the coach trusting Harry Carson as a defensive captain. I mean, I could ramble on about these small examples, and of course, of these characters. But I love golf because it's so mental and it's so acute, and it does came down to inches. And the caddies are they're psychologists, they're friends, they're comforters. They are what the golfer needs, whether sometimes the golfer needs it or not. And that's I kind of compare them to more like a general manager in NFL. People don't realize sometimes how important they are to the whole thing.
So let's bring all that down to you. Right? Have you ever had a moment, James, where someone's voice, you talk about how caddies and coaches can be a psychologist, a part-time one. Have you ever had someone's voice make all the difference for you, whether you had success or you didn't? Was there somebody that was in your ear?
Oh yeah, there's several people. It would be disingenuous. I learned a long time ago, if you start mentioning names, you're going to forget someone. I used to call them steering wheel speeches when I drove home. You remember? I wish I could remember all the people on the way there or the way back that I forgot to thank. But my father, and I know it's kind of an easy truncation, but my father was a man of few words and a listener, and he would go out and find people that were experts in certain fields, which I found out years later, and get advice from them because his father was killed when he was died when he was 4 years old. So he always felt like he didn't know what to do. So I always admired my father, not because he was my father and I looked up to him, but I found out years later, and he wouldn't tell me this from other people, and especially at his funeral a couple of years ago, that all these men, that were, he made friends with everyone. And he taught me that. That's how you and I met, right?
Yeah.
And just some guy in the crowd with his son. Hey, you want to meet this Hall of Famer? And yeah, let's go. And I would tell you, my father was really good about getting advice from a lot of people and taught me that and never took credit for it. And really at the end, I didn't know this. And I admired him because so many times I wanted to leave my college. I wanted to not do this. I want to do that. And my dad would just ask questions instead of giving direction. Like, well, what are you feeling about this and that, as opposed to pointing fingers. And he would lead me into let me think that I made a decision, or lead me into a thought process of psychological where I had time to sit down and relax and let emotions get the best of me.
You were telling me that when you were on the board at the Pro Football Hall of Fame that you actually sat next to Dan Rooney and formed a bit of a relationship with Mr. Rooney. What was he like?
Yeah, I sat right close to him. I think my best, we called him the ambassador. He was I think it was Ireland, if I remember right. He was an ambassador, and he's not a man of that, but we called him that. My favorite story, and it epitomizes the Steelers, and I'll try not to get too lengthy on this, but Jerome Bettis, and I believe it was 2015, because I know Ambassador Rooney passed away, I think, a couple years after that. Ambassador Rooney is up in the VIP, and up to the front of the induction ceremony, of course, as an owner. And I was sitting right by him, and without sounding a little braggadocious, the VIPs, we got to go on a bus on the back of the stage, and we get bussed off away from security and everything else. So as we're going after the induction, Ambassador Rooney, and he's got to be I don't want to get the dates wrong for you Steelers fans, but probably 84, 85. He's, I think he's somewhere up there. And he's not moving too well, and they have people around him, and all these Steeler fans. And I do want to separate the story just for a second. By the way, in the times I was on the board for, it is known, and I hope I'm not being unfair to the Hall of Fame, trying to be all things to all people. When a Steeler got inducted, we had to reserve tickets for other people because they show up and show out. They think it's Heinz Field, and I do have a side story when Jerome Bettis got inducted, because I actually was sitting with because whoever plays in the was Larry Allen in that class. I was sitting with all the Cowboys, and they played what is it, Renegade? Y'all play at Steelers, right. And they're all doing the terrible towels, and the stadium looks like Heinz Field, and even the Cowboys were taking videos of them. So back to Ambassador Rooney. This just showed me a moment of class. So I'm kind of helping him along. And saying, oh, okay, I got it. There's people around him. The Steeler fans are, where we were going. They're right there, and they're going, "Yo, Mr. Rooney, Mr. Rooney, Mr. Rooney." He said, he told the Mountie, the sheriff guys, "I'm gonna go over here." They go, "Well, no, we gotta go to the." No, I'm good. I said, "Sir, I'll help you. I'll stay with you." Because we can go a back way through the hospitality suite, which I was blessed to have. There was a VIP way back another way, but anyway, the point is, he said, "No, I want to go talk to these people," and he wasn't moving good at all. And I helped him along with some other people. He goes up in the stands. He's missing his bus. He's missing everything, and he sat there in the stands and just talked. And all these Steelers fans come around and just talked to him.
Wow.
Now, I'm not trying to be disingenuous in the owners, and forget his age, and he had other things to do. He had to get on a bus. He didn't know where his next ride was going to be. It's obviously very packed during the induction ceremonies. He has a VIP thing in the back door, and he just said, "No, I want to go talk to my fans." And he got up in the bleachers, and and he didn't care about security, and everybody just came around. Some people It's interesting. Most people you think would want to sign. They just want to talk to him. And he shook every hand. He had to sit down. And man, I was just so impressed with, and of course he died 2 years after that, but man, what an amazing owner, right? You know, that's why, look, what are you all on now? Your fifth coach since the 70s?
Yeah,
Four. Yeah. That's right. Chuck Noll, Tomlin, and,
Bill Cowher.
Bill Cowher, you know, Hall of Famers, 2 Hall of Famers. And I think Tomlin definitely is a Hall of Famer. And, I mean, who does that? You know, that's just the Steelers. Anyway, the point is the Steelers have always taken that attitude. I think the only hiccup they had a couple of things inside the family, and it's kind of known. The biggest one was over Dan Marino, but they laughed it off later with the old man and drafting him out of Pitt. But, you know, I will tell you all the Steeler Hall of Famers, I can't go on and on about them. They take that blue collar Pittsburgh Steeler, let's do our job and be present. So I don't know. I'm a massive Steelers cultural fan, even though all the Cowboys down here fans will lynch me, but I don't care. Because if you came to my ranch office, you will see a ton of signed Steelers helmets.
And we'll be right back. Golf season is back. We've got the Masters coming up, and the U.S. Open is out there on the horizon. And Sunday Swagger just made sure you're going to be ready. Their new spring collection just dropped. They've got 60 bold, performance-driven styles for men, women, and youth. And if all of that isn't enough, well, they just linked up with Pennzoil and Team Penske for a race-inspired collection that brings serious trackside energy to the fairways. With styles for men, women, and youth, you're guaranteed to turn heads and spark conversation when you wear Sunday Swagger. Visit sundayswagger.com, join the Sunday Club for exclusive drops and member benefits. And folks, Sunday Swagger is going to give you what? Polos with personality. Again, check them out online, sundayswagger.com. And folks, Squares Golf, best golf shoes on the planet by far. It's not a gimmick. It's not marketing. It's science. Don't take my word for it. Let's hear from 6-time major champion Sir Nick Faldo.
So Nick here. What if there was a golf shoe embraced by hundreds of thousands of golfers, celebrated for its stability, comfort, and distance? What if this shoe earned the title of most technologically advanced golf shoe by Sports Illustrated? And what if the company behind that shoe spent the last year perfecting a brand new category of golf footwear? Well, the what if is here. Introducing the all-new Pro S2 LT by Squares, a new class all of its own, the perfect blend of lightweight comfort and stable performance. You'll notice the difference. Change your shoes, change your game. Squares.
Now back to the show. So let me take something you mentioned a moment ago about Mike Tomlin, because I'm curious. You mentioned that he's probably a Hall of Famer. I mean, the mantra around him has always been he's never had a losing season, right? He won a Super Bowl very early in his tenure, lost one a couple of seasons later. His record in the postseason, really overall, is pretty poor, particularly the last 16 years that he was the head coach there. And they don't really hand out any rings, James, for being 500 or above. You don't get a mediocre ring. You only get the Super Bowl ring. Is he really, in your mind, do you think he's destined to be in a Hall of Famer?
I've always been careful with that in our previous interviews because I'm going to quote Deacon Jones a long time ago, and I know David Baker, kind of, who's a past president CEO and just still a good friend of mine, Deacon said, it's not the Hall of Great, it's not the Hall of Excellence, it's the Hall of Fame. And the Hall of Fame is very, very persnickety about this. I would say this. I think it's like you said, but Chuck, him and Chuck Noll have close to 193 wins each? Is that right? I think. Yep. Okay. And not to get disingenuous, don't get mad at me, Steeler Nation, but I think his win-loss percentage is better than Noll. Just to kind of shed some light on that, is it? And secondly, I understand what Noll did with Super Bowls, and by the way, Super Bowls do count. Do not think they do not. But furthermore, I'm sorry, I keep saying, that's rude on the radio. Tomlin has about the same number of wins. He's number 9, I think, all time. He holds the record for to start your first season in the NFL, 18 straight winning seasons. Okay.
Yep.
And let me bifurcate that to one of my favorite Hall of Famers. As I said earlier, Marv Levy. How many Super Bowls did Marv Levy win? And he's a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
And no one should doubt that Marv Levy, I think he's like 26 on the list, or if I remember last time, he's right below Bill Cowher, right, on wins. Yep, he went to Super Bowls. I mean, Coach went to a lot of playoff games, and he went to 3 or 4 division finals in a row, right? Who does?
Yeah.
I mean, people don't realize how hard it is not only to make the playoffs. I love that Bill Parcells has said in his induction ceremonies, people don't realize that these guys are all hurt all year long, and it's just a matter of getting the right guys hurt and the right things and getting everything together. But to make the playoffs and then to make the division playoffs, much less win a Super Bowl and then lose the Super Bowl and be one of the top 10 coaches of all time. I don't know how, and again, I'm not disingenuous to my Hall of Fame voters and board members, but if you're asking me now that I'm away from that thing, I absolutely see, I don't know how you would not do that. Mm-hmm. Because, if you go down the list, you're going to have Parcells, is, probably 10, 12 wins behind him. You've got Hall of Famers Bud Grant, Joe Gibbs, Bill Cowher, Coach Levy, Tony Dungy. I love Tony. Hank Stram. All these guys, we can go down the list. Dick Vermeil. Oh, by the way, I can't say enough about him. And Humble. Tomlin has as good a percentage, if not better, and wins, and 18 in a row. This is a great coach. And as Deacon Jones says, it's consistency. It's the rarity, and I think Coach Tomlin absolutely passes all those tests.
I want to go back to something you were mentioning a little while ago about stability and how important that is in relationships. Because to your point, right? I mean, the Steelers are now only on their 4th head coach since 1969 with Mike McCarthy starting this coming season. I mean, teams like the Jets have had 4 head coaches in the 2020s. So but talking
to the Cowboys. Sorry, go ahead.
But when you've talked to players, how important is it to them, if at all, that an organization like the Steelers has that kind of stability? I mean, I know contracts and dollars is a huge deal depending on, where you're going to sign and who gives you the best, average salary and all that kind of stuff. That's a big deal, and money always wins. But from a stability perspective, have players talked to you about the Steelers and the fact that they are such a stable organization? Does that factor in anywhere when players are thinking about where they might like to play?
I will say this, the most talked about programs for consistency and culture is Steelers. And back in the 80s when San Francisco 49ers, when DeBartolo took them over, and if you notice, he threw money at players. He said, I'm going to treat you. There's great stories of one of his a player who's just a normal player for a couple of years, got his arm cut off and never played NFL again. And people don't know that he wrote checks to him for the rest of his life. I mean, I've heard stories of people even been across the line, the 49ers back then saying, hey, put a good word into the owner. That's true. And I've heard that from not just one, I mean, a lot of that. So I've heard a lot during those days and the Steelers organization, because when a new coach comes in, here's what a player knows, and money is a big thing. But however, you have players that go, okay, this guy's got to prove himself without a job. And so he may kind of get rid of me and trade me because of the job. So how do I work with this new guy? But if you have the same guy every year and veterans, Mike Singletary, was so tired of Buddy, his defensive coach. And I talked to Mike and asked him if the story is true. And he said, man, if one of the veterans saying, hey, Buddy Ryan, the more he's on your ass, the more he loves you, because Mike Tom was like, Singletary was like, I'm not going to quit, but I'm tired of this. I'm not motivated. So there's a place where the veteran goes, this is Buddy. The more he yells, the more he loves you. He just ignores everything else. So it's little things like that. But I would say the Steelers, and when DeBartolo took over them, they said the way they were treated and the consistency and letting them do everything, and people were staying on there, and the owner would fight for their things and get involved and work around the agents. And there's a lot of stories. Some of them I can't tell. I don't want to throw people under the bus, but at the end of the day, it's definitely about money. But beyond that, everybody gets money. It's how do you manage the things, and how do you manage personalities you have a new coach every 2 years. And how do you coach that knowing that the axe could fall? I don't mean this. I mean, the Rooney's definitely expected to win and everything else, but you know, they stayed with their coach. I mean, I think Chuck was. I mean, I won Super Bowls, but he was a little over 500. You know, but they stuck with him because they knew the culture he brought. And sure enough, the Steelers have that going for them. When you show up at the Steelers camp and they have the old guys come back, Franco told me he's been invited back not only at Penn State where he played, but they would invite all the old players back. And bring the guys around and share stories. And, that's an owner and coach consistency and for a player, because a lot of these players, and a lot of them have told me that that's their dad. A lot of them didn't have a dad growing up. And, and I can tell you the other side of the stories, which I don't want to get into the negativity, but that's their father that they never had. That's the person in their life that they're with most of the time and they're talking to. And, I know in latter years, but Greg Popovich of the Spurs was known for that. The stories that came out with him with David Robinson, Tim Duncan, how he kept that team together and calling them during the offseason, even flying out to Hawaii to meet with David Robinson about Tim Duncan's contract. Who does that during offseason? I know I'm kind of switching sports on you, but those things matter, that that coach is safe and you can deal with him and you can trust him. Otherwise, you don't win. It'll be the next guy next year. New plan, new scheme, new things. And it's tiresome for the players. It is.
So let's take that a step further, James, because
sure.
In things that matter, at the end of the day, whether it's in football or it's in golf for that matter, talk about chemistry. Is chemistry an overrated thing? Is it something that just fans like me talk about and having great chemistry on a team, or they're lacking chemistry and that's a reason why they don't win? Is that overrated? Does it really just come down to whether the players execute out there on the field or not? Or is it real and you can't win a championship or anything great if you don't have great relationships, great trust, a great organizational culture, which all kind of rolls up into having great chemistry?
I'm going to make a statement I've never said before. It's just coming off the top of my head. So please don't people punish me. I definitely think in golf more than anything else, because it's just you and your caddy out there, right? You may be having financial problems, sponsorship things, whatever problems at home. That caddy is your psychologist. He travels with you, everything else. It's one-on-one. I think you would agree with me that chemistry at that level is the most acute that you could get, because it's just the two of you.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
100%.
When you get to more players, it's basketball. We have seen that chemistry. People have tried all-star teams and everything else, but we've seen what Steve Kerr did with what Popovich did at the Spurs, and Steve Kerr, infamously a assistant video editor, said, "Coach, I've noticed if you go smaller, kind of like Popovich did there." And then, as you know, the infamous story, if you don't know it, he did that and went to the players and talked to them. You see, even in all these sports, the less the number of players, the more chemistry becomes germane, right? But I do think at the NFL level, with all the players, obviously 11 on each side without special teams, et cetera, you see the teams, and I love what Bill Parcells says, they come together at the right time, work around injuries, and they work together. And a lot of that starts in the off season. And I do think chemistry. I mean, obviously the quarterback with his linemen and the receivers, the defensive middle linebacker with his down lineman, and the coach calling the right plays and trusting him to make the reads. I've heard infamous stories about how Ed Reed, would switch some things out, and they said, "Okay, do it," and he would look over to even one of the greatest linebacker core and, tell Ray Lewis, "Hey, this and this," and just having that trust and trust each other. I absolutely think chemistry cannot be overrated. And what people don't realize is chemistry in the locker room, and then chemistry off season is so important. So yeah. I hope I answered your question,
You
but
did.
I definitely, and I'm not saying this because I'm on a golf thing, not being disingenuous to the NFL or, but I definitely have seen in basketball and lesser people, the more chemistry becomes, and because there's lesser people and lesser personalities, but golf, I think it's at the highest level.
Looking ahead to the NFL draft, which we have coming up in a couple of days, and it's being held in Pittsburgh, how big for a franchise like the Steelers, who have never hosted a draft before, and the city obviously hasn't either. So how big of an opportunity is it for teams like that to get their chance at hosting an event like the NFL draft in their city?
It's more important than people think. They think beyond the economic impact. It creates kind of a, this sounds a little ethereal in some ways, but that's about as $5 word as I have at my quiver. But when your team wins or loses, it can bring a community up or down. You would think that, correct?
For sure.
And when we met at the Super Bowl in Atlanta, and I knew one of the top owners who's on the Hall of Fame advisory board, he said what it did for Atlanta, who had so many heartbreaks, just hosting an event like that. So I think it's great for one of the towns that has shown class to their ownership, how they do things, as I said earlier, and it's great for the city of Pittsburgh, and it's great for their team. On top of, you guys got a lot of picks in round 3, but that's becomes a sideshow in some ways. But it's allowing this amazing fan base, and I would say when it talks about away games and Hall of Fame things, what I've seen, no offense to everyone, and I'm not saying this, the most dedicated are the one of the top 2 that I've ever seen. If you dovetail that in, which is I have seen nothing but that. Again, Cowboys fans can come lynch me at my ranch later. That the stats are there. I've seen it firsthand. The players, the culture, and now they get to have a draft date. I think the city deserves it, and I think that they're embracing it, and I'm so glad it is happening that because that town shows up and shows out for the NFL.
Will you be at the draft?
I will not. I resigned from the Pro Football Hall of Fame board. Thank you to them for telling me to reconsider. And I thought about it again, and I did. And I haven't done any podcasts. I was doing iHeartRadio, doing all the stuff, and doing all the stuff. I haven't been back. Super Bowl. I haven't done anything. I don't attend anything anymore. It's not for not a love of the game. It's just that I'm up in my years, and I got remarried, and I like being on my ranch, and I don't like traveling anymore, to be honest.
Before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with the great things that James Allen is out there doing? How can they follow you, whether it's online or it's on social media?
I don't really do social media. I had that account for my kids. So thanks for shouting that out. But I literally at the ranch, I've been asked, I do full-time ministry now, just so you know. And I've done some podcasts and stuff in that world, but you're happy to share my email to the world if they want to reach out and ask me football questions. I have no problem with that. I can give you my public email, which I'm happy to do on here, but I'm not really a social media thing. I'm by the way, real quick before you cut me off, happy birthday. I went Sunday, right? Coming up.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. I know you look younger than me. I think you're a little older. But you're 67. How old are you?
61.
61. Okay. Why did because I talked to you earlier by text. Maybe I read the 1 and a 7. That just shows you because I just turned 63, so I'm old and I can't see. So the 1 is a 7. So don't take any offense. But no, my public email is TX, like Texas Developer 38 at yahoo.com. Back when I did social media, a lot of your fan base, when you and Bob were doing those things, and then my iHeartRadio, they would send me all kind of questions. But now that I'm not on the board and I'm not going to Super Bowls, I'm not as informed as always. But I love the fan is short for fanatical, and at the end of the day, the NFL fans are amazing, and happy to always answer that. But my social media thing is would be very disappointing because my kids are growing up, and they've seen all the stuff and met all the players, and I'm kind of that old guy in the corner now. So but it is what it is.
James, you're fantastic, my friend. It's always a privilege to get to spend some time with you. I can't thank you enough for coming back and being a part of this show, getting some opportunities to catch up with you. And I hope we get this privilege with you again very soon.
Yeah, and thanks. Golf is the best lifetime sport there is. Go out and play golf, enjoy life, and tee it up and do your thing. And thanks for edifying, especially Gary Player. What a class act that guy is, shining lights on all these people. Chris, as you always done. It's great for the sport. It's great for the player. It's great for their kids and grandkids. And I can't thank you enough, because that, at the end of the day, keeps the culture going in the golf world.
Absolutely. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
All right. Thank you, brother.
James.
Bye-bye.
That is the great James Allen, folks. And like I say, he was a member of our Guest Hall of Fame over there on Thursday Night Tailgate, because he was a pretty big regular. Came in, shared all his stories, things going on in and around the Pro Football Hall of Fame and around the Hall of Fame game. And like I say, the Gold Jackets, he always referred to them as, and the guys that he's had an opportunity to sit down with and chat with over the years. The list of greats is unbelievable. Again, go out there and check out that Instagram page. At least you're going to get some photos. It's at TXDeveloper007. You'll see some of the people that he's had an opportunity to sit and talk with, and it's only just a few that you get to see the pictures of. And it's been everybody, I promise you. His stories are absolutely outstanding. You go over there and check out Thursday Night Tailgate. You can see some of our old interviews with him. You can find it out there online as well, particularly over on, I think Podbean still has those shows. It's been a couple of years since we've done them, but his episodes are just unbelievably good. And he's just such a great guy. You hear it in his voice and his positivity and the laughter and the smiles and everything. And like I say, when I had an opportunity to meet him in person, we met at Lee Steinberg's Super Bowl party, and then, just walked around. I had my son with me. He introduced him to this player and that player and the other player. Hey, come over here and look at this. That's who James Allen is. He is just somebody that you want to be around. He's so genuine. He is so nice. And he wants to actually interact with you. You talked about how Mr. Rooney was, and that's a fantastic story in and of itself. But we all know how great Mr. Rooney was and how great the Rooney family has been. And James is embodying those same kind of characteristics as well. So I can't thank him enough for everything that he has meant to me and how good he has meant to be, how good he has been to me over the years. Hopefully we get this privilege of having him back on. Try to get him back on maybe after the draft, maybe this summer as we get into training camp. Here's some more of those great stories. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this special, like I say, NFL Draft Week special of the show featuring just two great people. I hope you enjoyed both of those guys. Cody is amazing. James has done so many great things. These guys are out there achieving and have done so much in their respective fields. I hope you got a lot out of it. I'm hoping that I get both of these guys back on the show again before too long. Rooting really hard for Cody, just like I am our good friend Steve Shingledecker, Robert Morris, and then, of course, University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. I hope they both have a ton of success, and I look forward to having both of those guys plus James Allen back on the show before too long. Like I say, it's time for me to put a bow on this episode of Next on the Tee. My thanks to both of those guys and to you for pressing play and checking out this week's episode. Scheduled to join me next time are our good friend, 2012 Senior Open champion, Mark Wiebe. Will be back. Love Wiebe. So looking forward to having him back as part of the show. The CEO of Scott Golf, Scott Peterson, will make his next On the Tee debut, as will Teddy Lynn, who is the founder of Heathlander, which is an amazing golf apparel company. If you're not familiar with them, go check them out online, heathlander.com. I want to thank our friends, as usual, over at Trib Live for being such wonderful partners and for hosting this show on their site. For the latest news from Western Pennsylvania and beyond, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com. You can find the show by then clicking on the sports section tab, and right there, front and center on the homepage of the sports section, you're going to find the most recent episode. Or you can type in podcast.triblive.com. Then you're going to see the Next on the Tee logo. If you click on that, many of the most recent episodes from this season available for you right there as well. But as you guys know, we're out there pretty much anywhere you get your podcast content. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and golfnewsnet.com as well. But as I say each and every week, the biggest thanks go out to each and every one of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts, barring none. I can't tell you just how much I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies and be sure to follow it on Trib Live or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.